He thought he had me cornered. A professor with an ego the size of a mountain tried to erase my future with a stroke of a pen, by marking me absent in almost every class I actually attended. What he didn't know was that I had proof. And when I brought it all crashing down on him, he went from arrogant to begging for mercy. If you've ever wanted to see justice served cold, this story is for you. Don't just watch, be part of it. Hit subscribe, drop a like, and tell me in the comments the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen. Let's get into it. Back when I was a grad student, I thought the hardest part of my degree would be the coursework itself. Long nights coding, drowning in research papers, deadlines that felt impossible. What I didn't expect was that the biggest obstacle I'd face wasn't the subject matter. It was one professor who seemed hell-bent on making my life miserable. This guy was our programming professor. Let me paint the picture. Imagine a man whose ego could barely fit through the lecture hall doors. The first couple of classes weren't about programming at all. Instead, he dimmed the lights, opened a PowerPoint presentation, and proudly walked us through his list of achievements. Awards, conferences, collaborations. Slide after slide. He basked in his own glory while the rest of us sat there, notebooks open, waiting for actual lessons. I could never quite figure out why he didn't like me. Maybe he sensed that I wasn't impressed by his self-promotion. Maybe he just needed a scapegoat. Whatever the reason, it became obvious very quickly. This man had it out for me. At my university, attendance wasn't optional. You needed at least 80% attendance to even qualify to sit for final exams. That policy meant everything to me. I was diligent, made sure I showed up, even if I was tired or sick. I wasn't about to throw away years of effort over something as stupid as missed classes. So, imagine my shock when the first attendance report came out about a month later. I opened it, scanned the list, and my stomach dropped. According to this professor, I had been absent for almost every single class. Now, I knew this wasn't true. I had been there. Every lecture, sitting in the same row, even saving files from my lab work. My hands started shaking. My mind raced with questions. Was this some kind of clerical error? Had I offended him somehow? Or was this deliberate? I decided to confront him directly. I walked to his office, knocked on his door, and when he finally looked up at me with this smug, almost mocking expression, I asked if there had been a mistake in marking attendance. What he said next is burned into my memory. "I didn't give you attendance," he said, leaning back in his chair, "because I don't think you've learned enough in my class." I was stunned. Since when did attendance depend on whether he personally judged that I had learned enough? He wasn't done. He told me he'd ask me a few questions, and if I answered them correctly, maybe he'd consider giving me the attendance I deserved. Oh, and by the way, he claimed I was supposed to be carrying a notebook with summaries of his lectures. That was never a rule. Not in the syllabus, not in any guideline. Just something he made up on the spot. Of course, no matter what I did, he decided I didn't deserve attendance. Just like that, he was ready to sabotage my entire semester. I left his office that day with my fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. My future, my degree, was hanging by a thread, and this man was holding the scissors. But I wasn't about to give him that satisfaction. That night, I went home and pulled out the dusty old student rulebook the university gave us at the beginning of the program. Most students tossed it aside. It was full of generic rules like don't smoke in class and respect your teachers. But I had actually read it once, and something clicked in my memory. I flipped through the pages until I found the section on attendance. And there it was in black and white. As long as a student was present, even if they arrived up to 15 minutes late, they were entitled to full attendance for that class. Nowhere did it say a professor had the right to withhold attendance based on personal judgment. Nowhere did it mention mandatory lecture summaries. That was my ticket. I sat down and wrote a long, detailed email to the university authorities. I explained exactly what had happened, that I had attended the classes, that I was being denied attendance unfairly, and that the professor was inventing rules out of thin air. To strengthen my case, I went to the computer lab and pulled up my saved files. Projects, code, assignments, all time-stamped with the dates of our classes and my username clearly attached. I snapped photos of everything and attached them to the email as proof. A few days later I got a reply. The head of department wanted to see me. I walked into her office with my heart pounding. She listened quietly as I laid everything out. The false absences, the fake notebook rule, the arbitrary quiz. When I finished, she leaned back, crossed her arms, and said something that felt like the first breath of relief I'd had in weeks. You are entitled to your attendance. And there is no such rule about maintaining summaries. I'll direct him to make the necessary changes, and action will be taken. I left her office with my head high. Justice was finally on my side, or so I thought. The next day, the professor asked me to come see him privately. I knew better than to expect an apology. Sure enough, when I sat down in his office, he looked at me with desperation in his eyes. I could lose my job over this, he said. I need you to do me a favor. Write an email saying you accidentally attended the wrong classes, that it was your mistake. I'll still give you the attendance. My gut told me something was off. Luckily, I had come prepared. I was already recording the conversation. I kept my face neutral, nodded along, and agreed. But of course, I didn't actually send that email. The next day, I went back to his office again, this time with the recorder running. I told him I'd sent the email and asked him politely to grant me the attendance he promised. He leaned back, smirked, and delivered his final betrayal. What attendance? You admitted in your email that you attended the wrong classes. This is on you. You're not getting anything. That was it. Game over for him. Because what he didn't know was that I had just caught him lying twice in his own words. I marched straight to the dean's office, pulled out my phone and played both recordings. The professor had tried to trick me into lying to protect his career, and then mocked me for trusting him. The dean listened carefully, her expression hardening with every word. By the time the recordings ended, there was no denying the truth. This man had been trying to illegitimately fail me. When he walked into class a few days later, the transformation was almost surreal. This same professor who once strutted around like a king was now standing at the front of the room, crying. He rambled about how he might lose his job because of me, trying to win sympathy from the students. But the power dynamic had shifted completely. Everyone could see through him. And while he wasn't fired, he never dared mess with me again. And here's the sweetest part. I ended up scoring 90% in his class. I've always hated programming and honestly I still suck at it. But in that moment, it wasn't about loving the subject. It was about proving a point. That no one, not even a professor with a god complex, gets to decide my future. The revenge wasn't flashy. It didn't involve yelling matches or public humiliation. It was quiet, precise, and devastatingly effective. I beat him with his own words, his own arrogance. Watching him crumble, not because I ruined him but because he tried to ruin me and failed, that was the most satisfying part. If there's one thing this taught me, it's that power without accountability is dangerous. Sometimes the only way to protect yourself is to fight back smarter, not louder. And trust me, nothing feels better than turning the tables on someone who thought they held all the cards. What do you think? Was this revenge fair? Have you ever had a teacher or boss who abused their power? Share your stories in the comments. And if you love seeing bullies get exactly what they deserve, hit like, subscribe, and share this video. Until next time, stay sharp and never underestimate the power of receipts.